Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
I named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who loves a good Taika Waititi-inspired and written program, probably. It's Frank. How are you today?
I do. I really do love those things. That's correct. Hi, I'm doing great. How are you, bud?
I'm very good. It's great to see you, as it always is good to see you, because you're a human and I'm a human, and we enjoy looking at each other as humans do for, community and stuff.
This is all true. All these things you say are true.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
I also love sharing a beer with you.
Yes, and I love sharing one with you. What beer are you sharing with me this evening?
I would love to
This
share
morning?
with you.
No, definitely this evening. Don't
Anytime,
forget the morning, Frank.
any time of day. No judgment. No judgment. Anytime. This is a beer from the Definitive Brewing Company of Maine, and this is their Contee Kölsch-Style Ale. This is one of my last summer beers that I'm trying to sort of polish off from the fridge here before we shift into fall beer season.
Nice. Although we're really already in fall beer season, I hate to tell you.
but before, well, I'm finishing all the summer beers before I open the fall beers that are in my fridge, I guess is what I mean.
I got you. Now, on that, what is summary about this one that it doesn't apply to fall? Because I think you could have a Kölsch in the fall. It's not,
that is
beer
true.
legal or anything.
I associate Kölsches more with. I drink them more in the summer because they're so light and refreshing, and so on a hot.
But you also
day,
drink stouts in the summer. Do you also associate those with the summer?
I don't. No, I don't associate them with summer because it's not like, oh, it's summer, I want stouts. It's just that there was a string of weeks in a row where I happened to be in a stout mood, and now we joke about that. But it's not like summer, time to go get a peanut butter stout.
I can't wait for my stomach to be full and for me to be hot.
Yes, yeah. There are times when even though it's sort of unseasonable, I will be in the mood for ooh yeah, that chocolate stout sounds really good right now. I know it's hot and it's summer, but I feel like it.
Sure.
But no, I think about the lagers and ales and stuff in the summer, and a Kölsch-style ale fits right in there because it is so light, it is so crisp and refreshing. So yeah, that's what I'm rocking today, and it's really good. I actually have never had anything from this brewery before, Definitive Brewing, but it's a very good Kölsch, and I would be happy to try any other stuff as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
that's excellent. Nothing that is beer, because there is no beer currently in my house.
Ooh.
And I have not had the chance to go to the store and get some. Actually, my father-in-law was doing some work in the yard with my wife. They're building a greenhouse.
Nice.
In the back, and he was working real hard, and he was like, I could really go for a beer or three, and I'd be like, well, last time you came over, you drank my last one for the same reason. He said, I haven't gone to the store yet, so I owe you, I guess. Yeah, basically, yeah. I can offer you a seltzer or some water, which is just seltzer, but without the sparkles or the flavor. So I don't have anything. So I'm drinking a blueberry tea. Which is delicious, from the Dogadan Tea Company. I don't know.
Ooh. How do you spell that? I'm not familiar.
DOG with an accent on it. ADAN. It's got a little line at the top of G. I would say that it's like one of those little squiggle lines, but I can't honestly tell from the font that they're using.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, but the blueberry tea is excellent. It's very
Oh.
good. I would recommend. Yeah. It's got, if you need a dessert, but just tea, blueberry is the way to go.
Yeah. Wow. So is it? It's sweet in and of itself because of the
Yes,
blueberry?
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, I am a no milk, no sugar in my coffee and tea drinker. So
Yep. Just straight ahead.
I think it's sweet enough as is. It's good. It's good stuff. It's
Awesome.
not beer, but I'll survive. We'll survive until next time.
It sounds excellent.
Doesn't it though? Doesn't it? Frank, we are here to do a fan favorite segment, and by fan favorite I mean you and me.
We are big fans of this segment.
Big fans of this segment in which I hit you with my best shot.
Hit me with your best shot. Why don't you hit me with your best shot?
That's right. We're here to hit Frank with my best shot, my good old 1-2, the bright hook. Thank you for picking up that joke that was in my head that I didn't say out loud yet. And so we haven't done this in, I feel like, a while, actually.
Been a minute, yeah. I mean, to be fair, we haven't done any of these in a minute, but yeah.
That's true. That's true. You've been away on paternity leave. But here's the thing with this best shot that's interesting to me is that you asked me to hit me with my best shot for this particular subject.
Yes.
And so you have an inkling that you want to participate in this event, this media event.
Yes.
But you haven't fully decided yet, right?
Yeah. So I've seen. Well, why don't we?
Okay, so I am
Say what it
here.
is.
I am here to hit Frank with my best shot for the FX series, which you can also find on Hulu, which is where I watch it. Reservation Dogs, which is a half an hour dramedy. I'm definitely going to say dramedy because it's not straight comedy by any means.
Okay.
About 4 Native American teenagers growing up in a reservation or on a reservation in eastern Oklahoma. And it is easily one of my favorite shows that I have watched and come back to, within recent years. It's definitely hitting on some pretty top-notch stuff. So, Frank, I'm here to tell you about it. Do you know anything about it before I try to sell you on watching this?
I know very little about it, other than several people whose tastes I tend to share have recommended it on social media and that sort of thing. I've seen some of a couple of teasers and trailers on Hulu while watching other stuff on Hulu. And then the thing that most recently brought it to mind was that you and Mary mentioned it in passing on one of your recent episodes here.
Okay.
And I remember Mary saying how great it was, and I remember you mentioning it a while back. But I don't know much other than the premise you just laid out, that it's about American teenagers living on a reservation. That was really all I don't know who makes it. I don't know who's like, when you mentioned Taika Waititi earlier, that took me by surprise. I didn't know he's involved or that it's whatever. You'll tell me in what capacity. But that's really it. I know the title, I know the premise, and that people who I like have said that it's worth checking out. So knowing that you have watched it, you and Mary have watched it, I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start off by saying that the first season trailer, like when the show was before it aired, didn't sell me. I was not particularly interested. I don't know what it was selling, but it wasn't the show that I watch. Which I find really interesting. So it's a comedy series. I argue it's a dramedy about 4 Native American teens growing up on a reservation in eastern Oklahoma, and their big thing, these 4 friends, are that they want to go to California. It's revealed pretty early on that another one of their friends, one of their family is connected in a lot of ways that I won't have to get into, but committed suicide before the show opens. So you call it a comedy, but it has some pretty serious overtones right from the beginning.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite literally they're kind of not hoodlums necessarily, like they're good kids who get into trouble, like, and so it just kind of follows their misadventures, like in some way, like weirdly like To Kill a Mockingbird style, where it's like, here are these friends, they're just up to stuff, and they just happen to learn about stuff as the life goes on, and they learn their life lessons, and it gets pretty crazy for them and whatever else. And that's the show. That's the first season of the show. The second season does that as well, but it has smartly expanded to do episodes about other people in the town that
okay,
which is really fun. So like there's like the native cop that you know, and then there's the weird uncle who's into some weird stuff, and like there's like so and so's mom who works at this place and she's connected to so and so. So you start to really see how everybody, you know, functions and is connected to in one place, which I really appreciate as a viewer. Just like nobody feels random. They all feel like really well-rounded three-dimensional characters. What interests me about the show is that it is like really fully supported by Native communities across the country. And so my wife and I are, you know, we're interested in Native culture, like, you know, and my cousin's husband is Native, and so like he's like some of it's in the family, and so like it's interesting to watch a show that is fully Native created, written and starred all, and so like what they say, what they do, the slang that they have, how they live, the humor that they possess, all of it is authentic. And it's like the thing that they have to kind of like prop up and be like, isn't this great? Isn't like, we're not just like sitting in a teepee with a tomahawk and like you think we are.
Right. Right. Breaking the stereotypes.
It's a hugely breaking a lot of stereotypes, and which is partly what I appreciate about it. The show was created by Sterling Harjo and Taika Waititi, and so Taika's involved, and because he obviously is not Native American. He's Kiwis from New Zealand, but he said he grew up on what is the equivalent of a native reservation in New Zealand, and so he said so a lot of like the self-deprecating humor, you know, survivalist humor, that kind of thing, like the relationships that everyone had is like really similar. Like it's just so there's a lot of connective threads that he felt early on while working on the show. There is a mystical element to the show, which is like it doesn't really get talked about. So like this one character's name's Bear, one of the kids, and he has this like warrior that like shows up to him. They goes like, "Oh, hello." He always goes, "Oh, young warrior," and he's like there in the traditional garb, and he's like, "Yeah, I was the Battle of Little Bighorn," and and he's like, "I was in the back. I fell and I hurt my toe, and that's why I fell over and died." Custer, he was a jerk. Like, you know, and it's just like and he just kind of keeps showing up at inappropriate times to be like, "Hey, how's your like life going? You know, like, are you like doing the things you're supposed to do? Oh, like this friend was causing you a problem. Well, maybe you were a jerk." Like, you know, and like it's like really, really fun, and like, but it's like not every episode, so it's kind of like there, but it's not the focus. You just kind of roll with the fact that like, oh yeah, he sees this warrior guy. There's an episode about the deer lady, the deer woman who like is a native myth, and she like helps people out and whatever else, and she shows up once and then disappears. But like most of it is, but everything else about it, apart from being a comedy, is like pretty straight-laced realism. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition of styles. So like even like the mystical part of it still feels real. So like you're like, yeah, Vision, why not? It's really cool. Yeah, it's a really it's really interesting. And if you watch that first episode, you'll be like, oh yes, Taika Waititi was involved in this.
Okay,
you can
yeah,
tell it's got that signature, like slightly off kilter, or like offbeat humor, where it's like you think the beat's coming here, and then it's 2 seconds later, and it's happening over here. That kind of thing. It's like a little reminiscent of, I would say, more like What We Do in the Shadows, Where the Wilder Thing, not Where the Wilder Things Are, Hunt for the Wilder People. It's like that. It has like that tone to it, more Hunt for the Wilder People than anything else. But it's pretty fantastic. I mean, it's only in its second season, and they're quick episodes. They're like half an hour ish episodes, so like you're in and you're out fast.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that especially in season 2, they tell like lots of stories of different. They sort of highlight different characters in the town and whatnot. How does the show, how episodic versus serialized is the show? Like, how much is there an overarching, story that runs through a whole season or through the whole series versus the episodes being sort of standalone?
So I would say that the first season is a little bit more serialized than the second one. I think it's just kind of by the nature of the way they do it. So you have 4 kids, and they all share a story, but the real stars, I would hesitate to say, of the show, one of them's a kid named Bear, and the other one is Alora, and so like you're really following their stories through the whole thing, and like so maybe Cheese has a story. It's what a kid that they call Willie Jack has a story, and you see what's happening there. But like it's mostly Bear and Alora, and the second season is really all of them. So it's like one episode is Cheese's episode, like the person he's living with gets arrested, so he ends up in a foster home, and the whole thing is just the whole episode is just him in the foster home. Like that's it. But it's not connected. Like the next episode, like that's over. We resolved it in 30 minutes, and so you're moving on to the next thing. It's almost easier to like flit in and out of it than before, because the only thing they really ever refer back to in the first season happens before the show starts, which is the death of one of their friends. That's really the only thing that like you'll ever see again, except for characters that are recropping up, like you would in any show.
Sure. That's interesting. I feel like FX shows in particular tend to do that sort of thing where like the first season of a show, I'm thinking of like Atlanta too, where it'll be very much like more of an ensemble cast sort of style, and then they sort of branch out more and start telling individual stories of have episodes about individual characters more and tell more. Now that you have a baseline, now that you've established who the characters are and the world that they're in, you can start to explore different corners of that world a little bit more. Atlanta, You're the Worst used to do that quite a bit too. I really enjoy that. Like when you really get to know those characters and know that world and like really get immersed in it, it can be a really, really
I find it rewarding. It's like a rewarding
is
experience.
actually the word that comes to my mind. Yeah.
So like in the second season, there's this. So someone's aunt comes back. She hasn't been on the reservation in a long time since somebody else died, and so like she's not really the focus of that episode. It's like, oh, she's here and she's talking to her sister, and like that's part of it, but it's focused on the kids and what else is happening. But then 2 episodes later, the episode is about those sisters and their night out. And so if like you're kind of like, so it's like you're introduced to, but then you get a whole episode about people that you haven't spent more than a collective 10 minutes with over the course of 2 seasons, and you're just like, oh, what are they up to and what are they up to? And the show, everybody is so good in it that you just care about what they're doing all the time. And it's great. I think it takes a lot for characters to make an impact on a viewer when they don't have a lot of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, they don't have a fully rounded character, they don't have a lot of screen time. So, like, what are you doing to make your impact in the 2 minutes that you have, like, every third episode? You know, and so for me to care about an episode with you and what's going on in your lives, knowing that it's really not going to affect the kids at all, like it flashes back to the kids, like he's like, "Oh yeah, Mom, I'm fine." Hang up the phone, party, woo. That's it. That's all you get. Like,
yeah.
So it's an interesting style of storytelling to get me to care about somebody that I didn't sign up for watching in the first place, and then spend a whole episode on them. And then characters don't show up for a while. I'm like, oh, you know, what happened to, you know, I don't know, Rita or, you know, Big or whatever. And so you're like, now we got a whole episode about him. Fan-frickin-tastic. That's awesome. Yeah, there's some good stuff. And it gets weird. There's like one episode where you're like, this is as real as it gets. There's no like mysticism, there's no anything. It's just about like somebody's dying, and it's about the funeral, like grieving and spirituality and community, and it's just like, and you're kind of in it, and you're like in the family, in the room with them. Like, I feel weird. I should have brought a dish, but you're just watching you on my TV. Like, they do a really good job at bringing you into that world. And the next episode, you're like watching the cop like find a secret society that, like, in the woods, made up a bunch of white people who are trying to reclaim native land for themselves.
Wow. So
like, it's like wildly divergent, like in tone, in style. So like, just when you think like, oh man, I thought the show was funny, it just goes completely in the other direction. Or like, oh, that's kind of weird, I thought the show was a little more grounded. Bam, hit you with something else.
Sure.
it's cool. So it's, in some ways, it's got something for everybody, which is very cool. Yeah.
You mentioned you just mentioned you know, the idea of like the secret society trying to reclaim native lands. How much and how do they approach those you know, the issues that are sort of unique to the native people, like, you know, that the harsh realities of American history and what they've had to deal with?
So it depends on the episode, but because it's native centric, there are not a lot of white people running around in the show, and so it's most of the time it's not really addressed, like unless it's a passing comment. What you get more than anything is deflective humor about everything, but kind of in a lot of ways the point of the show is to be like, they like other things. They have other lives. They live that. They go to their jobs just like everybody else. They live this. They do that. And so like, it's not really about like decolonization or anything like that. There was an episode about it, which like the kid like youth group thing met, and everybody like one of their moms made them go. You know, so they could get a Sonic gift card at the end, and they have like these two influencers, like native influencers, come and talk to them about decolonization or nativism or something like that. It's like this huge, and so they really, more than anything, are poking fun at it, like big time. They're like this kind of like that style of like, I guess, new wave media style of you know, like saying a lot of things and meaning nothing. And then just like how real people or real teens like react to that kind of that, you know, so just no different than like we would react to a speaker coming to school for us and be like, you know, what's that John Mulaney joke about the wallet? What's the guy?
Oh, JJ Bittenbinder.
Yeah, you know, like, you know, trapped in a trunk, you know, or
you
whatever.
Want it? Go get it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's like we wouldn't react well to that as teens either. So it's just kind of seeing a new version. It's kind of seeing a new version of that.
That makes sense that it wouldn't be like directly addressed because I imagine the whole thing takes place on the reservation, right? So like you're probably not ever or rarely leaving. So I guess, but I would also imagine that it's like their lives are just shaped by that. Like maybe they're not talking about it directly, but like their lives are shaped by history, obviously.
So the kind of the premise of the show, like I said earlier, is that these 4 friends are trying to leave the reservation to get to California, just because California is the land of the free, the land of dreams over there in California. It's better over there than here. And so part of the show is them discovering the importance of their heritage and their roots in the reservation, why people don't leave, like how proud they are of it being their space and their home, however small or run down it may be. And so there's there's other stuff that kind of involves like gentrification, and it's kind of like some native assimilation from people who like say they're native and they're not, but it's not. None of it's done in a after school special mode,
right?
Which is because I guess it in some ways it is addressing all of that by not addressing it, just by being a show by natives for natives, but for everybody. That is enough, having the show use proper terminology, so you the viewer just understand what's appropriate and what's not appropriate.
That makes a lot of sense. That sounds super interesting. Now, the title Reservation Dogs. The first couple of times I heard someone refer to it,
Reservoir
I was
Dogs.
I was like, are you? What are you talking about?
They poke fun of it.
Do they really?
Pretty much in the first episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Reservation Dogs is like that name of the 4-friend group that they have, but it's given to them by Mose and Meko, these two native rappers who are like famous on their own right and who are also in the show. And they just like ride around on their tricycles in the reservation, and they're just like, hey, look at this, the Reservation Dogs.
Gotcha.
Like, so but like I think it's in the first show the kids are like walking down the street like in Reservoir Dogs, that like opening like roll thing, but that's pretty much where it ends. It's just a good play on something for people to remember. So like my wife has never seen Reservoir Dogs. I don't even know if she knows what it is, but like the show is like that doesn't really matter,
Sure. Yeah. Right. That's actually, honestly, that's more than that's more of a connection than I would have assumed. I kind of just thought like, the name's just a pun. That's it. That's where it ends. Like the fact that there's any connection or any reference to it in the show itself is more than I would have expected, I guess.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive that joke is in the first episode. Just kind of gets it out of the way, and you're going forward from there.
Sure. So 2 seasons. They're half hour.
Yeah, it's 8 episodes apiece, I think. So
season 2 is finished.
Going to be.
Oh, okay.
Real soon.
It's airing now.
Hold on, I'll actually use my one lookup for you. How's that? Second season is 10 episodes, so that's why it's not done yet. But the first season's 8 episodes.
Nice.
Which I feel like is also typical of FX, right? They always kind of go for a smaller first season order, and if it's good enough, they'll pick it up.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm looking at the still on IMDb of the first episode, and it's the 4 of them in black suits and ties doing the whole thing.
Cool.
Yeah. I think it got to, I mean, I've enjoyed every episode, but I would give it 2 or 3, so just so you get the flavor of the whole show. Sure. Like I enjoyed it after 1, but it was like how like you watch one episode and you're like, I could go like I'm interested enough, or I could try something different.
Sure.
And so, but I'm really glad that I like kept going.
Nice.
And so it would be easy. I mean, we didn't binge it either. Actually, we didn't start it when it premiered. Now that I think about it, it was I think it was only halfway. I think we were already halfway through the season when we finally started it. And so, but I look forward to it every week. Like oh yes, we have a new Reservation Dogs. It's fantastic. And I don't say that about many shows that we watch. We're like, oh yeah, well, it's on. Like my wife and I watched The Gilded Age, and like a commercial or whatever, it popped up on HBO Max, and she was like, oh yeah, we watched that, didn't we? I forgot that was a thing. So yeah, but like we like update each other, like, yo, Reservation Dogs new trailer out,
Nice.
or it's premiering. It's close. It's in. Yeah. So so it's good stuff. I do recommend. I also think your wife would like it too. It's not not just for you.
Yeah, I think we both would. Honestly, I'm interested in it for all the reasons that I said up front at the beginning of the show. I was also recently somewhat sad to hear that a show we've been watching, Rutherford Falls on Peacock.
Yes.
It just had its second season, and it's not getting picked up for a third. And it's a similar, not a similar premise, but a similar setting.
Yeah, I watched the first 2-3 episodes. Yeah, but I couldn't watch the rest of the season because I don't pay for Peacock. So
sure,
I do the freebie one.
We were drawn in because it was Ed Helms, and it was Mike Schur was involved in it, who is from Parks and Rec and The Office and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Good Place and a bunch of other shows. And so we were drawn in by that, but then we really, really enjoyed the fact that it takes place on a reservation, and it does deal with sort of the inherent conflict between Native people and the U.S. government, and but it deals with it in a really in a way that is meant to make you think. And a lot of it, some of it is a little bit like there's a moral to the story at the end of the episode, and some of it is more just sort of what you're steeped in, because like you said before, by not talking about it, they're addressing it. But since that show got canceled, we were drawn in by it. We were very interested in what it had to say, and now there's no more of it. So that left a void.
Oh, sure.
So this feels like, I want more, and this feels like something that would address a similar set of issues. So
yeah, the style of comedy is certainly different than Rutherford Falls. Like, but I love
Taika style. So like that's
it's definitely, it'll scratch that itch for sure. Yeah, because like you just don't know what you're going to get every episode. Like, like the episode, like I said, the episode previous to the one that I just watched was like, oh man, that was pretty serious. I was really touched by that. Like, I'm going to think about some stuff. It's good. Next episode, bam. Secret cult society made up of white people in the woods, and you're like, what? Like, yeah. So it's just anything is possible, and it's just a. I'm glad people have discovered it and it's embraced, and like people keep, because I think it just on its own, like it's just important for representation more in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that the people who it's made for approve of the lens that the show is using. So like that makes me feel like, oh, okay, this has something of a certificate of authenticity, and that makes me feel like I'll be learning something by watching it.
Yeah, and truthfully, I agree, and I wouldn't if it didn't have that kind of stamp of approval, then I probably wouldn't watch it.
Sure. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, but it's a history maker. It's the first series to ever be written completely by Indigenous writers, directors, and actors.
So cool.
The first ever. So like
wild that it took that long.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's just if you want authentic, it really doesn't get more authentic than this.
That sounds like one to check out. So thank you for hitting me with your best shot. That was a pretty good shot.
Thanks. Please tell me when you watch the first episode.
I will. I for sure will. Yeah.
Yeah. Frank, where can people find us?
You can find us at beerwithgeeks.com, at thoughtbubbleaudio.com, at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. You can follow us on all the social media at beerwithgeeks, or email us beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. And you can subscribe and rate and review us in all the podcast apps, including but not limited to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast. YouTube is going to be starting a podcast thing soon, and I'd like to get us on there. And anywhere else you can find podcasts. Seriously, like go to beerwithgeeks.com and the entire list of them is there. It's a lot. So whatever app you're using, you can follow us and rate and review us there.
Cool. Frank, a pleasure to talk to you as always. And I'm going to raise my blueberry tea to you and say cheers.
Cheers.